Our opening words today are the UU principles. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and the society at large, the goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part. Good morning. My name is Molly Keogh, and I'm a member of the UUCD Social Justice Committee. We welcome you and all of who you are to this service of worship. We are glad you're here. We continue to be grateful for the technology that allows us to continue to meet during these times of social and physical distancing. Thank you for your patience and grace when we have technical glitches or delays. Just please consider them an opportunity to take a deep breath. In addition to our worship each Sunday at 10, we meet on Tuesday nights at 7 for a more informal check-in and sharing. Please consider joining us for that gathering. And for all our connections, we encourage you to invite a friend to join and to get to know our UUCD community. There is certainly room in our hearts and our space for more people who are searching for a liberal, diverse, non-judgmental spiritual community. Now I invite you to take a deep breath and listen to these sincere words of welcome. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you've been, whatever you've done, whatever your religious beliefs are or aren't, and wherever you physically are on the planet right now, you are welcome in this spiritual community. However you move in this world, how much or how little is in your bank account or wallet, however you are feeling in this moment, you and all of who you are welcome in this spiritual community. We are all enhanced by being together. Today, the order of service has been slightly adjusted to accommodate reflections from members of the Social Justice Committee. Please also be aware that at 12 noon today, you are all invited to the monthly meeting of the UUCD Social Justice Committee on this channel. We encourage all of you with your energy and ideas to meet with us, discuss and plan how we're going to change the world. And now it's time for the chalice lighting. And the chalice is a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, and it's being lit all around the world this morning. And all of the UU churches are online, probably most of them are doing it online. So I have a chalice here, which, oh dear, it's lit, but it doesn't fit in here right. Little problem there with the chalice, but it's okay now. Well, I'll take my word for it. It's lit. Now I'm going to read the chalice lighting. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. In the chat box, you'll find our affirmation, which we say in unison. So please join with me in reading the words of Edward Everett Hale. I am only one, but still I am one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse the something I can do. The first reflection today is right now. So that's what I meant about the order being changed a little bit. We're going to have reflections throughout the service. So the first reflection today is mine, so I can get that done. And this is all about my thoughts about social justice, where I am, a little bit about my life. But it's very short, so it's not my whole life. The need to pursue social justice is less about the product than the process. Allowing oneself to be proximate to those denied justice connects at a granular level. We will always have a need to advocate for social justice, The trick is to identify and specify the target for change. After all, to get closer to justice, change is necessary. So what is the process if the process is more important than the product? My Catholic family during Lent got on our knees in our living room in our house in Rochester, New York, with the radio turned on, and we listened and said the rosary every night during Lent. Praying the rosary was a ritual for our family. And the rosary was always with an intention. So before we start the rosary, we would say the rosary is for the poor. The rosary is for the sick. Sometimes the rosary is for the Pope. But anyway, there was always an intention. Never having enough money for the heat bill in our house, or never having enough money to stock up on groceries in our house was never an intention. My mother was a widow with 4 children. She didn't see us in need of prayer, always others. Our eyes were wide open to all local and world events. So that was foundational for me, awareness. A lot of talk about what's going on in the world, a lot of reading of books, a lot of reading of newspapers, a lot of discussion. So that was foundational, I think, for me, awareness. Awareness that social inequities existed, conviction that it was the responsibility of the government to fix it, Mom said. Our job was to pray. And I guess how it was supposed to work was the heavens were supposed to open and rain down solutions. There wasn't much action going on, at least not in the household. But there was the awareness, the intentions. And it might have been a need to balance the other side of this equation, that change requires action, which led me to a career where the focus was on the well-being and life journey of others. When Bob and I decided to try out this UUCD congregation in 2010, there were 2 things that hooked me. The first was the meditation before the Sunday service. And the second was the Social Justice Committee. Over the years, my focus has been on abolition of the death penalty. And this was a Catholic value, but action part, no. That was pushed onto me by me being proximate to Delaware's execution chamber and the residents of death row. The UUCD Social Justice Committee partners with UDAN, which is Unitarian Universalists of Delaware Advocacy Network, where we connect not only with other UU congregations and social justice action, but with secular organizations on the same path. Recent years have found us lobbying the state legislature on action to right a specific wrong or lift up the forgotten and neglected. The past 10 years have been filled with hope, so necessary to continue the work. The hope is fueled by action and solidarity. Hand in hand, it is possible to block out the noise and keep on trucking with a smile.
About 35 years ago, the nation was captivated by the passion of a young boy in Philadelphia, Trevor Farrell, who, after watching a news program on street people, started to help the homeless, eventually establishing a shelter for the homeless, Trevor's Place, when he was 11. His parents wrote a book about their efforts to help. Trevor's Place, the story of a boy who brings hope to the homeless in 1990. Sometimes it happens that young people like Trevor look at the social problems with fresh eyes and find many situations unacceptable that adults have become accustomed to. Over the years, there have been other attempts by young people to respond to the needs of people who live on the street, such as those pictured in Another Day in Paradise by Phil Collins, which you just watched. One recent example is the young man that you see on the screen now, Jaquil Jackson, a now 13-year-old boy from Chicago, who by age 11 had already helped over 20,000 homeless people in his city by giving away blessing bags. Seeing people on the street made me really sad because I thought everybody had homes, Jackson told Today. Jackson was 5 years old when he first saw a homeless person. Since then, he asked his mother if they could buy houses for all homeless people. While it seemed to be a far-fetched idea for a young child, he made efforts to help them through the organization called Project I Am that he established when he was 8 years old. Through the organization, he gave toiletries, food, and water stuffed in what he called blessing bags to homeless people in Chicago, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., Atlanta, Virginia, and Idaho. His efforts are not limited to just the United States. He has also helped people internationally, including those orphans in Mumbai, Swaziland, volcano victims in Guatemala, and hurricane survivors in Florida, Houston, and Puerto Rico. When I'm giving the bags to people, it makes me feel like I'm getting one step closer to demolishing the whole homeless thing. And it makes me happy to see the smiles on their faces, Jackson said. While he gets some donations from his bags, he also has a store that he sells pillows and now clothing. The profits from these sales fund the purchase of the hygiene items that he puts in the bags. Jaquil is an example of the kind of difference young people can make when they are fired up. For more examples and more great ideas as to how kids can get involved and make a difference, check out the IMK or Inspire My Kids website that you see on the screen now. This website, inspiremykids.com, is devoting to helping motivate kids to take actions to address poverty. It offers a weekly newsletter with inspiring stories, quotes, and ideas for actions to make a difference. Everyone can make a difference if they try. Thank you.
This morning's UU Moment will provide a sampling of a few social justice initiatives that have been an ongoing focus at the denominational level of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the UUA. I'll also highlight briefly some ways that UUCD members have been involved in these initiatives or extensions of them. At one of our services last summer, I spoke about 2 actions of immediate witness, which represented the UUA General Assembly's position of conscience on issues of immediate concern. Amen to Uprising, a commitment and call to action, was one of these, and it was an outgrowth of so many events this past year, such as Black lives lost at the hands of police, violence against protesters, and so much more. Here at UUCD, many of us participated in the tool shed discussions last summer that Reverend Karma jointly planned with the pastor of the Baptist church just down the street from UUCD. The second action of immediate witness was titled Address 400 Years of White Supremacist Colonialism, and that one focused on the need for solidarity with Indigenous peoples struggling to preserve their lands, waters, peoples, sacred sites, and sovereignty. As a follow-up, the UUA had a full schedule of activities the week of Thanksgiving, Several UUCD members attended one or more of these events. One of the UUA's multi-year congregational study action issues led to a UU statement of conscience on escalating economic inequality. That was in 2017. As a follow-up here at UUCD around that time, the Social and Environmental Justice Committee held discussion sessions based on a bibliography of books that included recommendations from committee members, as well as pulling recommendations from a UUA study guide on the topic. Another outgrowth of our focus on this issue was to begin designating some of our monthly social justice contributions to Link of Love. In summer 2020, the UUA kicked off UU the Vote. This initiative focused on actions that UUs could take to educate communities, mobilize voters, and rally around key ballot initiatives at the local, state, and national level. Last fall, several UUCD members took part directly in an effort. For us, it was coordinated by the UUs of Delaware Advocacy Network, the UDAN, and that involved a postcard writing campaign to registered voters in various states prior to the general election in November, as well as to voters in Georgia who were electing 2 senators in last week's special election. I estimate that UUCD members handwrote about 500 to 600 postcards. The overarching message was, your vote is your voice, is your power. As you can see, there are many ways for we UUs to live out our values in the world.
It is our time of joys and concerns when we offer one another the opportunity to share very briefly what is most on our hearts right now, life's celebrations and concerns. As you do so, we invite you to light a candle in your own space. Through the action of sharing and kindling a flame, we give energy to our best thoughts, meditations, sympathies, celebrations, and prayers. We hold these as sacred in our collective hearts. At this time, we invite you to change your view to gallery view in the upper right-hand corner of your screen so that you can see everyone who is here. As you feel led, please unmute your microphone, share your joy and concern, and light your candle if you have one. We'll close out by lighting one final candle for the joys and concerns that were not spoken by us here, and that we may be in solidarity with others in our community who could not be with us today. Okay, it's my opportunity now to present the second reflection. I was asked to share my social justice journey, what roots my passion, and how this journey brought me to UUCD. If I'm asked why do service to others, my quick response would be because I like to, and because people should care for each other. I grew up in a Christian home with the foundation taught to love one another. In the Bible, the prophet Micah says, "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God?" This value to stand up for human rights, justice, and peace has stayed with me into my adult life. So I earned my teaching degree and secured a job with Indian River School District, teaching children with special needs, and I moved to Sussex County. I quickly learned that people and livelihoods in Sussex County were different from what I'd experienced growing up in Newark, upstate Delaware. And the families I was working with had needs that I had never had to experience. For me, to do justice is when you see a need and find a way to correct that need. I started with individual needs. I had a student who needed a motorized chair. How could I help the family raise money? Another family, the mother needed heat in her home before she could begin to focus on education suggestions for her daughter. What agency could help this mom? When I found the agency, I helped mom complete the paperwork for assistance. People need to know that we care. Justice is driven by a passion for caring. Not long into my teaching career, I met Paul. Paul came from a family who experienced hard times financially, the yin to my yang. Yet his mother always took in people who needed help, giving them a place to stay and sharing meals for however long they needed it. Paul and I became very active with Calvary Cafe, which was our local church's weekly ministry providing lunch and clothing to people in need. What Paul found most rewarding about Calvary Cafe was the relationships he developed with several people who came in each Saturday for lunch. These people wanted to help with the program, and Paul encouraged them to join him, to come in early and set up or stay after and mop floors. He was respecting each person's inherent worth and dignity, no matter their background. Sadly, some in our church didn't see this as a positive move, and there were concerns expressed about having those people come into our church areas beyond the area that was set up to serve lunch. And people in the church, many of them, advocated ending the feeding program. So shortly after that incident, Paul and I began to look for a new spiritual community. And that's when we found UUCD. And at UUCD, we found an opportunity to openly advocate for justice. One of the many things I appreciate about UUCD is that people in our community can share information on justice-related causes, and others choose to join them. This is what happened in 2014 when Paul and I brought information on the upcoming New York City Climate March to church one Sunday. Other UUC members were enthused and came to New York City to participate in the march. And we were all so encouraged by the diversity of people who came to New York City that day. There were people of all ages from many countries, a diversity of race, ethnic background, religious affiliation, and economic status. But their demand for climate justice unified them. So what are your justice passions? I imagine you'll find others in our community who share that same passion. Another way I promote justice issues that are important to me is I join and volunteer with local organizations. I belong to two. One is Sussex Health and Environmental Network. The other is Southern Delaware Alliance for Racial Justice. The Alliance's purpose is to end racism in Southern Delaware through education and advocacy. And to this end, the Alliance creates action plans, just as we do in our meetings at UUCD. One outcome of the Alliance meeting on criminal justice was an organization of an expungement clinic for youth, where youth could get free legal assistance and file their juvenile expungement petitions. And I helped with this program by making calls to remind each youth of his or her upcoming appointment, something I could do right from home. Through my membership with Sussex Health and Environmental Network, I'm kept aware of environmental justice concerns in Sussex County. And I can then advocate at the local level for climate justice. Paul showed me the importance of contacting legislators or writing a letter to the editor to advocate for causes. And when a political candidate stands for justice issues that are important to you, you support his or her campaign. It sends a message. In 2016, Paul convinced me that we should canvass for Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign. Well, talk about being out of my comfort zone. Bernie's platform did focus on many of the causes we believe to be important, but did I know enough to be able to answer a question? I soon realized we just need to show enthusiasm for the cause. We need to listen to people's concerns and encourage them to vote. And I learned in order to bring about positive change, sometimes I need to get outside my comfort zone. So to circle back, why justice? To paraphrase Catherine Booth, the co-founder of the Salvation Army, you are not in this world for yourselves. You have been sent for others. The world is waiting for you. Thank you. So we'll now shift to our offering, which is a central part of our worship in person and online. This opportunity we all have to practice the art of generosity. Our gifts to UUCD are what allow our congregation to thrive with a common vision to nurture our spirits, build community, and change the world. We are grateful to you for the many ways you support our community, including your financial pledges and offerings. Your gifts truly translate into lives changed. Every part of our ministry, from the worship that grounds us in our values, to the community gatherings that connect us, to our children's education, and our social justice outreach and actions, all are supported by your gifts. Right now, our congregation is in a time of creative growth as we move towards the official start of our new year in September. Individuals are imagining new ways to live our mission. This is exciting. Your giving affirms and supports this creative moment, and we know it will impact lives in the future. So we thank you so much. This is a reminder too, the Food Bank of Delaware is our designated monthly charity through June of this year. The Food Bank is the state's largest hunger relief organization, addressing the grave concern for food insecurity in our state. During this pandemic, the number of people in need has doubled. For every $1 donated, the Food Bank can provide 3 meals. Donations to the Food Bank are 100% tax deductible. Contact information for both the Newark and Milford locations will be in the chat box. Please help by donating and/or volunteering. Volunteers can sign up on the Food Bank of Delaware's website. That link is also in the chat box. Let's make a difference for Delaware's families in need. For those of you who are making pledges or want to contribute to our community, you may continue to write checks and mail them to us, or you can give online. There are instructions to do both of these things on our website at uucd.org. Just click Support UUCD on the menu bar. You can do that now, during this offering song, or any time that's convenient.
I've been thinking a lot about why and how I became an activist. For me, becoming an activist was not an easy journey or the fulfillment of a lifelong dream. I was born out of a difficult childhood, struggle, the will to survive, and the desire to thrive in this world. From a very young age, I watched my mother struggle. She was born in World War II, raised by her elderly grandparents from the age of 2 on a small farm. She married my father as soon as she saw an opportunity to leave home. But my father left us when my brother was only 4 and I was just a baby. We moved on and started another family. My mother shortly remarried, hoping that that would bring her and her children financial stability. But he was an awfully unfaithful and financially irresponsible man. So I grew up watching domestic violence on a regular basis. And while we left many times, we always ended up going back, and my mother did not divorce him until I was 17. My mother didn't have an education, and she was not financially independent. The fear of the stigma, being a two-time divorced woman, froze her will to leave. I grew up learning and understanding at a very young age that a lack of education, a lack of financial independence, having children to care for were all very difficult roadblocks to manage for women in less than ideal circumstances. Once I became an adult myself, I moved with my husband here to the United States. Sadly, 2 years later, I as well became a single mother with young children. And for me, there were added complications. I had a strange country to navigate and no support system. And I quickly discovered the differences growing up in a European social democracy and the lack of safety nets here in the United States. I quickly learned just how difficult it was to try and climb up socially and financially. And I struggled trying to navigate between work and raising children. But after raising my children under difficult circumstances, a fire started to build inside of me. A fire and a passion to take all my pain, anger, hopelessness, and helplessness that I felt going through it all and turn it into something positive. I didn't yet know exactly how I could take the lessons from all my struggles and turn them into something positive, helping others while helping myself. So I started asking myself, just how might people transform their pain? 'Cause even if you do not have a platform of millions to share your story, how can you use your pain to heal yourself and others? Can you volunteer your time at a local shelter or hotline? Can you safely write your story in a book or a blog? Can you encourage others who are just starting out in support groups or online forums? Can you express your pain through art so that others can find a way to express what seems unspeakable? Can you become a political advocate for issues that continue to bring us stigma and oppression? Here are a few examples of people who actually did just that. Holly Berry, she spent much of her adult life dealing with the impact of a childhood with a violent father and battled low self-esteem. Today, she spends a lot of time in a local LA domestic violence shelter. Jennifer Hudson channeled the tragic death of her nephew Julian into the Julian King Foundation. They help children with school supplies, holiday gifts, clothes. And Tyler Perry, who faced physical, emotional, and sexual abuse as a child, even homelessness as an adult. His writing and plays, as comical and light as they sometimes seem, always have the message of inspiration to the viewer to continue to endure. So when I started looking, I realized there were so many people who could do that and did that. A few more examples. The Parkland shooting kids, their parents, their teachers, Sandy Hook shooting, now grown fellow students, their parents, teachers. The examples really are endless. So for me, of course, I knew my personal journey and passion was towards women's rights and to help social democrats get elected. And since my epiphany, I've attended many large demonstrations, joined political groups, became a client escort for Planned Parenthood, helped with several political campaigns, and volunteered to become the head chef for the men's shelter right here in our congregation. So I'd like to end with a quote from Barack Obama. It's a sticker that I keep on my refrigerator. The best way to not feel hopeless is to get up and do something.
Talk about a revolution. Okay, I won't do that. It's now time to extinguish our chalice. The words are in the chat box if you'll say them with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Here are closing words by Eric Williams. We all emerge well within, are transformed by, called back to love. May your mind be humbled before the mystery. May your heart grow, hopefully. May you be sustained by the love all over.
Our virtual worship has ended, and our connection to each other and the earth endures. Go blessed to be a blessing for others.